channel. Now, if you've been following along for a while, you know that, basically anything with two wheels always gets my interest. And today's video is no different. Now, today is actually Christmas Day. Kids are inside playing with their toys, and guess what? Dad's outside playing with his new toy. So this was actually a surprise present from my dad for Christmas. He wanted to get me something to kind of repay me for doing everything I've done for him this year, and what a freaking perfect example, right? Now, for those of you kind of unfamiliar with this little bit strange looking motorcycle, this thing is a 1963 Honda Sport 50, also known as a C110, something along those lines. 50cc motorcycle, still kind of learning a little bit about it. It's either a 3 or 4 speed manual, got an actual clutch. This thing will supposedly do 50, 55 miles an hour. Speedo goes up to 60, so that's a good sign. This thing is actually mostly complete. You can see there's kind of some stuff missing. There is some damage to it. But again, he kind of thought it would be a fun project for me and obviously make for a decent video, trying to get this thing running and riding again. So let's dive into this thing. Now, once you get up close to it, you can see there's some pretty glaring issues. I'm missing some parts on the front end here. It looks like at some point this thing probably either got laid down or, and I don't know. It's had a rough life, but it is mostly complete. The top neck triple tree, I don't know what Honda would technically call it, is broken around here, so the handlebars wobble around quite a bit. Basically, everything up here is just trash. The clutch does work. The brake is basically frozen. That cable's real crunchy. It's missing the headlight, all the wiring, everything up there. And yeah, otherwise the tank looks like it's been off. It's missing the hoses. It actually kind of had a chuckle about this. It has the same gas cap my Honda Moped has, so that's kind of cool. I don't know if that's original, but, hey, we'll run with it. Otherwise, nothing is connected wiring-wise. It's just kind of a rat's nest. I'll bring you around here, show you the other side. It gets better. So this is kind of the scary part. This thing's been kind of cobbled and cut on. It did come with a battery in just a pile of some of the other stuff, but yeah, that's going to be fun. You might have seen before that the boot for the carb has been long misplaced, and actually has an old handle grip in here for that, so maybe I did work on this at some point. The throttle works, so that's great. It does kick over. Sounds like it has compression, which is a good sign. As far as this thing goes, it looks like somebody probably just used it more like a dirt bike than anything else. The taillight's been, I'm sure, busted off at some point because this is not original. And yeah, I mean, it's missing a bunch of stuff, but for the most part, everything that is missing is, able to be located and hopefully replaced here. So I want to see if I can get this thing running before I dive into it, spending a bunch of money on stuff. So let's kind of play around with that. Lucky for me, most of this stuff's just sitting on here, so easy enough to take off. Set those out off to the side here. I do have the hardware for the gas tank. It was in that pile of stuff. Oh, that sounds good. See if you can hear this. Gas tank's gonna need a good cleaning. Hopefully that'll come back around. Some of this stuff they did kind of funky on these things. It's pretty cool. That's the air cleaner box. Got a little split in it, but I think we can save that. And the air cleaner itself. Yeah, sure. Get that out of the way. Oh, that hasn't been off probably ever. Whatever. Put it in the pile. Alright, kind of gets us down to some of this mess. Oh, jeez. Well, it does have an ignition, but for whatever reason, I have a Kawasaki key. This is not the original ignition, and that key does go in, but it sure doesn't work. It'd be cool if it did, and maybe, oh, it's just sitting in there anyway. And it's been wired up to what looks like some house wiring, so I got that going for me, I guess. All the factory wires have been cut and then butt connected back together. Jeez. This is going to be fun. Well, let's try and make heads or tails of this wiring, because it sure won't run without any of that. Now, what I'm guessing somebody did at some point was the ignition probably failed, and they just had this laying around. It looks like just a piece of rubber, some kind of deal. Well, maybe that does go in there, but anyway, looks like somebody probably had an issue ignition-wise, maybe, and tried to kind of cut and, you know, bypass all this, and it just it isn't working. You can see where all those butt connectors are. Yeah, ignition switch. This isn't even to this bike. Somebody soldered those ends on there anyway. That's not factory for sure. And yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't turn. So I'm gonna have to do a little research and see if I can find a wiring diagram for this bike and maybe try and bypass it myself, make this make sense. Anyway, yeah, let me do some boring research off screen, off camera here, see what I can come up with. Well, before I get too carried away, let's just see if this thing even has any spark. Maybe somebody in their jerry-riggery has actually made this thing work. I kind of doubt it, because basically everything is unplugged. Can't even. That's a no. Yeah. Okay, well, it was worth a shot. Let me dig into this some more. Alright, well, after digging into this for a bit, these wiring harnesses aren't super complicated. The only thing on the Hondas, and I don't know about the other makes, but on the Hondas specifically, they'll throw you for a loop because black isn't always ground, red isn't always power, sometimes green is ground, sometimes green and red is power. So there's some funky stuff to pay attention to in here. But basically, I found one wire from the stator that looks like it was probably grounded out on the frame. It's a broken wire, so that's never good. I found the ground of the coil was actually unhooked, which maybe they were doing that as some kind of, I don't know, a kill switch, basically. Unplug it. And other than that, all these wires just kind of dangling here are really just auxiliary stuff, lights, mainly lights. But from what I'm reading, I think power comes directly out of the stator and into the coil. It doesn't go through any kind of rectifier or anything. It doesn't seem like it anyway. And this is just a 6-volt system. So usually on these older 6-volt systems, the battery is actually your regulator, a lot like the Honda mopeds. On the Honda mopeds, they use the battery basically as the regulator. It'll overcharge those 6 volts, but the battery will balance it out. I am assuming this is a lot like that, where, you know, hopefully without a battery, it'll still run. Those mopeds on those 6-volt systems without a battery will run, and you just won't have any lights. It'll burn out all your bulbs. That's why it's super common to see those with burnout headlight bulbs on the 6-volt systems. Anyway, with all that being said, I'm kind of hoping I have spark now. Like I said, as long as I have output, I haven't voltage tested anything while I'm cranking it over. I'm just kind of looking at the wiring, and then using my knowledge of kind of Honda motorcycle stuff in general. And yeah, let's test it, see if I have spark. All right, here goes. Oh, exhaust isn't bolted on. Oh, look at that. That's actually got really decent spark. Awesome. We got spark, we got compression. I can hear it coming out of the exhaust, which this is just kind of dangling here by a thread. At least hand tighten that up a little bit, so it's not flopping around there. That's better. Okay, we got spark. Let's dump a little gas down this thing's yap and see if it'll fire. It sounds like it's got okay compression. Now, because it's Christmas and everywhere's closed, and of course I happen to be out of starting fluid and brake clean and basically anything else that's flammable other than gasoline. See my fancy little pouring cup. I'm going to try and just pour some down the inlet on the carb. Hopefully the float's not stuck. If it is, I guess we'll see what comes of that. But I'm going to see if I can dump a little bit down the inlet and if it'll actually take it. So let's see what we get here. This is about the worst way I could think to actually do this. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just holding that fuel right at the tip of the... Oh, there it kind of goes. I don't know what kind of shape this carb's in. Oh, there it took some. I don't know if it's plugged up. Is that even in there? For all I know, I'm wasting my time and it's just full of garbage, but... Oh, it is very slowly taking that fuel. I'm spilling more than I'm getting in here, but see if I can just feed it a little bit. Alright, who knows the last time this thing was started. I didn't check the spark plug. I didn't check the carburetor. Like I said, throttle works. Choke seems to work. Choke, I think, is on. Let's give it a shot. We'll go full throttle. Whoa, that actually kicked back. No freaking way. No way that just popped off like that. Holy crap. Well, it won't stay running, which is probably 100% in the carburetor. We got a runner. I don't even know what to think right now about that. Well, I guess, sorry, I guess that was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Let's pull the carb off, I guess. Yeah, let's pull the carb off. See what's going on with that. And maybe we can clean this thing up and get it to run longer. That is not. Let me try it again. That's crazy. What the heck? That's ridiculous. All right, let's pull this carb off. See if we can clean it up. I cannot get over that. That is wild. I don't really know any of the history on this thing. Like I said, my dad picked it up for me. It's a little crunchy, but we can live with that. My dad picked this thing up for me on kind of on a whim as a Christmas present. And who knows the last time this thing actually ran. Who knows the last time it actually rode. I'm guessing by the wiring it's been a while. These wires are all, you know, it's not fresh copper by any means. It's pretty rough, so that's freaking crazy. Freaking handlebar grip. It was either a kid or an old farmer that had this thing before me. Guaranteed. Come on, who freaking fit that in there? Jeez. I don't want to ruin it because I don't have another piece of hose right now, and none of the stores are going to be open to get a piece of hose. There we go. What an interesting little carburetor. Anyway, yeah, let's take this up to the toolbox here, put it on the bench, see what we can find. These actually were kind of a simple deal. Just have this bail on here to hold the bowl on. See if I had any fuel in there. Well, I mean, I got a little bit. It's wet. It's pretty nasty. But nothing that can't be cleaned up. Well, that's about as far as I'm going to tear this down for today anyway. I may, once I get an actual kit, tear this thing down completely and, you know, see what I can do maybe about this float. Well, I guarantee the float's not working because it's cracked right there. I wonder if I can solder that. That may be worth trying, because who knows if I can find a float. Now this carb is backwards. I have a whole mess of carbs for that Honda Moped that I have, and probably the same size, very similar size, but the carb is backwards. It mounts differently than all those carbs. Now yes, I could take and mount it to the actual intake in a different way, figure out something there and make it work off one of those. But I'd like to try and get it going with what I got. So let me do a little cleanup time with this. Maybe see if I can get that float off. Maybe solder the float. All this stuff we're going to move over. Now, I know there's probably a smidgen of gas in here. Let's just give it a test. Anything? Anything? Yeah, see? Burn off. I was going to say that's a good sign. Maybe that isn't a great sign. How am I going to do this? Well, I guess now that it's off, that's not such a terrible deal. Ooh, and it's hot. It is hot. It's very, very hot. Okay. Let's try. Too big. Just right. Alright, where was that crack? Crack's right there. Okay, that's cooled down. See if you can see that now. See that crack? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to fix. Hopefully, anyway. Will you just sit in here? That would be kind of cool. Ooh, you will. if you'll stay there. Maybe this is a terrible idea because the whole thing is kind of soldered. Yeah, it's going to be finicky, and I'll play with it. Okay, not my prettiest work ever. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully, yeah, you can kind of see it right there. But it's solid. It's not going anywhere. Yeah, so I think that's going to be it for now. Pretty much got them the same height. Got everything else kind of checked over. It looks like I don't know if they collapsed a little bit or what, but I don't see anything on this one that's given me any concern. We may find out later that I'm wrong, of course, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, well, if anything, the float, needle, and seat's working. I ended up taking that apart. There was a bunch of rust and junk stuck in there, which is probably why I couldn't fill it. So I just put an entire one of these little shot glasses in there. Not really shot glasses, little measuring cups, but put an entire one of those in, and it took it. Choke on, obviously carburetor, everything's back together. Just the reverse of taking it apart. So, all right, let's give this another shot. The plug was all fouled out. I don't know if that's a byproduct of me dumping a bunch of gas down it or the carb not acting right, but oh, that worked. Let's try it half choke maybe. Right, full choke. Good. Not bad. Better than it was. Go back to full choke. Whatever happened there, didn't like. Out of fuel already? I might have. Alright, I'm gonna fiddle around with this off camera. This is getting tedious. So I'm back tearing the carb apart again on this thing just to see if there's something else going on and, what I can do about this thing. And I remembered that the carb I put on my Moped is very, very similar. In fact, I think it's about the same size. So I went and dug out the actual carb kit, replacement parts that come with that thing. And lo and behold, that gasket's right. Oh, and the floats are correct for it. Now I'm sure it'll take a little bit of fiddling to get that. Jets aren't right. Of course, this base gasket, that's not right. But I was able to kind of super glue this end in place. And it seems to be okay. I don't know if it's actually going to hold or leak or what, but I guess we'll find out. So I'm just going back together with this thing, new floats, made sure I doubly cleaned everything. Yeah, the inside of this carb doesn't look great. And, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But, we'll see. Anyway. All right. Let's try this again. I'm going to try it this way because I want to try and see if the clutch will work. God, I can't hardly kick this thing like this. I have to lean it. Well, that's all that really matters. The clutch works. Awesome. Now, I mean, obviously, that's not with me riding it, that's just doing it in the air. But I would think if it works there, it'll probably work to haul my skinny self around. So, now I just gotta figure out how to feed fuel to this thing without it just billowing everywhere. That may be another day project. Alright, well, while I'm waiting for parts to show up for that thing, I'm going to try and clean this tank. You know, there's a million different ways to do this. I've always had good luck with just CLR. I'll dilute it down a little bit with some water just to make it last, because I'm sure it's probably going to take multiple rounds of this to actually get it done. So, let's science this up. Bit of water in there. What garage isn't complete without a coffee mug full of, you know, just your random nuts, bolts. I'll try and pick somewhat clean ones. Don't need to clean the bolts while I'm trying to clean the tank. Whatever that is, that looks fine. Anyway, I'm going to fill this thing up, let it sit for a while and just do what it's going to do, and then I'll start shaking it up and, you know, doing random stuff like that. Rinse, repeat, till this thing looks clean. So, you know, hopefully it's not too bad. I can see down in the tank, obviously, and it really doesn't look that bad, just some surface rust, but the amount of rust and scale and crap I dropped out of this thing, I'm sure probably the bottom sides of the tank are super nasty. So, anyway, yeah, we'll see how this goes. Well, that's not ideal. Got a leak in petcock, but hey, look at this tank. This thing actually turned out really well. If you look really deep in there, you can see just that kind of heavy rust still. But overall, this thing cleaned up pretty well, and nothing a fuel filter won't help. Ended up throwing a new petcock on here, fuel line, fuel filter, and also picked up a carb kit, threw it in there, as long as I had everything else going. Well, I did it. I finally broke down and bought myself, you know, one of the real good Snap-on ultrasonic cleaners. Now, I've never had one of these. I've used them before, and they work awesome for doing carb stuff. And as you saw in the previous clips, the carb on this thing was just so nasty that I just wasn't able to get it cleaned up. So you can see kind of the aftermath here of what I did. Just used a little bit of just soap from the house, threw it in there with some water, let this thing cook for a couple days, and got the carb back together. So the last thing I need to do before I put really any kind of run time on this thing is change the oil. It had some in it, but not as much as it should, and it really didn't look great. So I'm going to fill this thing up with the cheap stuff, run it for a while, drain it out, let it just kind of chew on any garbage that's in there, and get it cleaned up. But yeah, otherwise, got that knocked out. Oil levels back up and full. You can see here. Oh, that looks nice. Right on the money. Like I'd done this before or something. And then somewhere along the lines, I lost the screw to the air filter. So I'm just going to jam this thing in here for now. It'll work good enough, keep any junk from going down in there. And then I think it's time to ride. I got a little ways to go tuning wise. This thing still needs kind of dialed in, but it is starting right up and running amazing. I ended up actually riding this thing most of the day today, and I'll tell you what, it did really well. Well, guys, this thing has been a ton of fun. I'm still blown away that it fired right up like that in the first place. But with a little fine tuning, a little more elbow grease into it, this thing actually starts and rides like nothing. It definitely needs some new tires. It needs some new parts thrown at it. But as of right now, I don't have a title for it. We're working on that. And I don't really want to sink a ton of money into it until I get a title. I want to be able to ride this thing and ride it a lot. And without that, kind of defeats the purpose. So I have played with it a little bit. I got the ignition working. Just that Kawasaki one. It works as a kill switch. That's all I need it for right now. I need to put some lights on it. I did throw a mirror on it because I got tired of looking over my shoulder constantly, make sure I wasn't being tailed. But yeah, otherwise, this thing's kind of blown me away for sitting up for as long as it has, who knows how long, and just to be right back on the street riding like it was nothing. Just blows my mind. Anyway, if you guys want to see more of this thing, leave me a comment, leave the video a like, let me know. Obviously, I'm pumped up about this thing. I really want to put some more time and effort into it, and like I said, hope you guys really enjoyed it. So I appreciate you hanging out, watching the video, and yeah, we'll catch you next time. Hopefully working on this thing some more.